Hey, who's down here? Who are you? The Capitol is under siege. December 2025. Not from terrorists, not from rioters, but from teenage gangs armed with machetes who operate with absolute impunity, while Prime Minister K. Stars promises ring hollow in Parliament, while politicians debate policy. Children continue dying on our streets, while ministers announce crackdowns. Knife-wielding mobs storm schools, while Starmer pledges to have knife crime. The bodies keep piling up, and the statistics tell a story of complete government failure. Just weeks ago, in November 2025, multiple people were stabbed on a train traveling from Doncaster to London. Armed police swarmed Huntington Station after witnesses saw a man holding a large knife on the platform. The suspect was tasered and restrained. 2 people were taken into custody. Starmer called the incident appalling and deeply concerning, yet offered nothing but empty platitudes while ambulances rushed victims to hospital. This is what Britain has become under his watch. Random stabbings on public transport, machete attacks during commutes, and a prime minister whose only response is to express concern on social media. Earlier this year, in July 2025, the nation watched in horror as 2 teenagers were sentenced to life imprisonment for one of the most brutal murders London has witnessed. 14-year-old Kellyanne Bycassa was stabbed 27 times with machetes on a 472 bus in Woolwich in broad daylight. In January, passengers screamed as the child collapsed in the aisle, crying, "I want my mom," before dying at the scene. His killers, boys aged 15 and 16, both with previous convictions for knife possession, both linked to the Woolwich Dockyard Gang. They walked free despite prior offenses. They obtained weapons. They hunted a child on public transport. And Starmer's government had no answer for how this was allowed to happen. But real quick, before we dive deeper into this crisis, let's be brutally honest. Mainstream media won't give you the full picture. That's why we built British front media to deliver unfiltered truth without corporate sanitization. If you want real reporting on the issues destroying Britain, subscribe to our channel. Your subscription actually keeps independent journalism alive. Reason number 1. Starmer's flagship knife crime mission is failing spectacularly, and the latest statistics prove it. When Starmer became Prime Minister in July 2024, he made one of his boldest pledges have knife crime. Within a decade, he leaned heavily on his credentials as former director of public prosecutions, promising a comprehensive strategy combining prevention and punishment. He launched the Young Futures program. He banned zombie knives and ninja swords. He threatened tech executives with criminal sanctions. He promised £100 million for youth intervention. 18 months into his government's tenure, what has actually changed? The year ending March 2025 saw approximately 53,000 knife offenses across England and Wales. That's barely down from previous years. Despite all the fanfare, London recorded around 15,000 knife crimes in 2023. 24 THS, nearly matching the devastating peak of 2019-20 THS. As we approach the end of 2025, the numbers remain stubbornly high, while stars a country making announcements about everything except the blade epidemic destroying young lives. Metropolitan Police recorded the highest knife crime rate in the country at 182 offenses per 100,000 population in the year ending March 2025. That's 6 times higher than rural areas like Cumbria. But here's what really exposes Starmer's failure. 8 out of 10 teenage homicide victims in 2023 to 24 were killed by knives, the highest percentage in a decade. Think about that. After all the speeches, all the legislation, all the bans, teenagers are dying at historic rates. Across Britain, knife crime is up nearly 80%. Since 2015, last year alone, 10 teenagers were fatally stabbed in London, following 18 murders in 2023. The government claims knife murders dropped 18%. They parade surrender schemes, boasting nearly 60,000 blades collected. In August 2025, Star posted on social media celebrating that knife robberies are down in the hardest hit areas and over 1,000 weapons taken off our streets in July. But these are meaningless vanity metrics when children are still being hunted on public transport, when primary schools become battlegrounds, when train passengers are stabbed during their commutes. Starmer's mission to have knife crime isn't just stalling. After 18 months in power, it's collapsing in real time while he deflects blame and changes the subject. Reason number 2, organized blade mobs are operating with military precision, and police remain powerless to stop them. Just this past June 2025, a gang of at least 50 youths armed with knives and machetes stormed Elm Park Primary School in Hing during a 16th birthday party. What residents described as 2 hours of utter mayhem unfolded as 2 teenagers were stabbed and the violence spilled onto residential streets. Families watched in horror as the mob fought outside their homes. 3 suspects were arrested on suspicion of assault on emergency workers after they attacked responding police officers. 1 mother reported her 15-year-old daughter was attacked again on a train while fleeing because a fire exit at the school wasn't accessible. This wasn't random chaos. This was organized. This was planned. This was a coordinated attack by dozens of armed teenagers who knew exactly what they were doing. And this happened in June 2025, a full year into Starmer's government, nearly 12 months after he took office, promising to crack down on knife crime. The security that was supposed to be in place non-existent. The safety measures failed completely. The police response. They arrested 3 kids after the damage was done, while 47 others melted away into the night. Earlier in January 2025, at the start of Starmer's first full year as Prime Minister, New Year's, revelers witnessed a group of men fighting with machetes at 4 a.m. on Oxford Street outside Bond Street, Underground Station. 1 man, aged 25, was rushed to hospital with a stab wound. Eyewitnesses described the attack as terrifying, with people screaming and running in panic. This is Oxford Street, one of the most iconic shopping destinations in the world, and machete gangs are openly brawling there during holiday celebrations, while police scrambled to respond after the fact. Back in July 2024, just as Starmer was entering office, multiple machete brawls erupted in the streets of Southampton, Essex, just 40 miles from central London. Families enjoying warm weather at the seaside witnessed gangs wielding long blades fighting in front of children in broad daylight. 1 person was stabbed. Others suffered serious injuries, requiring air ambulance evacuation. 8 arrests were made, but footage showed the fighting continuing for extended periods with security officers and families nearby completely helpless. These aren't isolated incidents scattered across years. These are attacks that have occurred throughout 2024 and 2025 under Starmer's watch. The pattern is undeniable. Large groups of armed youths, coordinated attacks, overwhelmed police, minimal consequences. And while this carnage unfolds month after month, whereas Starmer posting on social media about weapons surrendered while ignoring the organized blade mobs that continue terrorizing communities. Reason number 3, Starmer's tough talk on Consequences is complete fiction, and criminals know it. In June 2025, Star told LBC, we have to get in earlier, and there has to be clearly consequences for those carrying knives. It's too inconsistent. This statement came 6 months after Kelly and Bocasa's murder, and a full year into his government. Consequences. Let's examine the reality. Both attackers who murdered Kellyan had previous convictions for knife possession. They were already known to the system. They were already caught with knives before. And what happened? They walked free, obtained machetes, and murdered a child on a bus in January 2025, just months after Starr took power. The younger killer was involved in drug dealing. He was linked to a known gang. He had a knife conviction on his record, and he was still roaming the streets with access to weapons and the freedom to board public transport armed for murder. Where were the consequences? Starr promises. Where was the intervention? Where was the supervision? That should have prevented this murder. That happened under his governments. Watch. Starr announced back in 2024 he would bring an end to existing rules that mean young people carrying knives can escape sanctions simply by writing an apology letter. An apology letter. That's still the standard in many cases. A teenager gets caught with a blade, capable of killing someone, writes, "I'm sorry," and walks away to reoffend. This isn't criminal justice. This is criminal negligence by the system itself, and Starmer has done nothing to change despite 18 months in power. The prosecution statistics tell an even grimmer story. In the year ending March 2023, there were almost 19,700 cautions and convictions for knife possession. But here's the critical detail. Only about 30% receive immediate imprisonment. The majority get community sentences, suspended sentences, fines, or cautions for carrying weapons, designed specifically to kill human beings. Has this changed under Stala? No, and criminals know it. That's why they keep carrying. That's why they keep killing. Reason number 4, the prevent program catastrophically failed in 2024, and Starmer's government buried it throughout 2025. The Southport attack in July 2024, mere weeks after Starr took office, exposed the most damning failure of all. Axel Ridicabana, 17 years old, murdered 3 young girls at a Taylor Swift-themed dance class. The Prevent counter-extremism program wrongly concluded he posed no threat despite clear evidence to the contrary. He was on their radar. He exhibited warning signs. He was assessed, and they cleared him. Then he committed one of the most horrific mass killings Britain has seen in years. It was revealed that the teenager purchased a murder weapon from Amazon online. He was 17 at the time, under 18, legally prohibited from purchasing knives. But Amazon's trusted ID verification services failed completely. In January 2025, Starr described the process as shockingly easy and called the killer a 2-click killer. 2 clicks. That's all it took for a teenager flagged by Prevent to obtain a murder weapon and slaughter children. That was January 2025. We're now in December 2025, 11 months later. What has changed? The government accepted all 14 recommendations from the Prevent Review and pledged to get Prevent right, but the reforms remain largely unimplemented. The online verification systems remain inadequate. Amazon still sells knives with the same flawed age checks. And Starmer, he's moved on to other announcements, other photo opportunities, while the families of Southport victims are still waiting for meaningful change a year and a half after the attack. Reason number 5, the root causes are accelerating in 2025, while Starmer focuses on superficial solutions. The rise in knife. Crime continues to be driven by social inequality, gang activities, and reductions in youth services. These aren't new revelations. These factors have been documented for years. Yet, what has labor done since taking power? In July 2024, youth service funding remains chronically short-term and inadequate. Youth services still rely on grants typically allocated for only 18-month to 2-year periods, leaving little space for planning ahead. This was true before Starmer. It's still true 18 months into his government. In January 2025, just months into Starmer's tenure, a reformed knife carrier named Riss explained to reporters how gangs groom young people, befriending them, showering them with money and gifts, then threatening their families if they try to leave. His best friend, 17 years old, was stabbed and died in his arms. I had my fingers in his chest trying to stop the blood, he told reporters. This is the reality of knife crime in 2025. These are the lives destroyed while politicians argue about legislation. Also in January 2025, London Metropolitan University criminologist James Alexander declared that killing children is now the new normal. The new normal. Those words were spoken at the start of this year under Starmer's government. He traced the situation to housing estates in deprived areas where survival requires showing you can be violent, that you can carry a knife. As community ties weaken and the drug trade expands, young people become estranged from family members who might have acted as informal guardians. Starmer's response throughout 2025 launched the Young Futures Prevention Partnerships, create task forces, issue consultation papers, but none of this addresses the fundamental problem. Decades of disinvestment in the communities producing these desperate children. Labor has been in power for 18 months. Where's the massive funding? Injection youth services desperately need? Where's the comprehensive strategy that addresses poverty, education, housing, and mental health simultaneously? Instead, we get press, releases, and photo ops while the crisis deepens. Reason number 6, Londoners have lost faith in 2025, and Starmer has lost control of the narrative. As we close out 2025, the statistics paint a devastating picture. London continues to struggle with 188 knife crimes per 100,000 people, despite Star's major police initiatives announced throughout the year. The capital still sees 40 daily knife offenses on average, including 3- for acquiring. Hospitalization, 40 per day, every single day in 2025. While you read this sentence right now in December, somewhere in London, someone is being threatened, robbed, or attacked with a blade. Hospital data reveals that 42% of stab victims don't report attacks to police, suggesting official statistics dramatically underestimate the crisis. Nearly half of all stabbing victims never even contact authorities. Why? Because after 18 months of stars, government, they still don't believe. Police and protect them because they fear retaliation, because they've watched this government make promise after promise with minimal results. Metropolitan Police Commissioner Mark Rowley admitted he fears knife crime is becoming normalized because people dismiss it as gang crime that won't affect them. But 2025 proved otherwise. The June attack at Elm Park Primary School proved otherwise. The November train stabbing proved otherwise. The January Oxford Street machete brawl proved otherwise. The murder of Kelly Bassa on a public bus proved otherwise. Nobody is safe when blade mobs operate with impunity. So here's where we stand. As 2025 comes to a close, Costa, who built his entire crime-fighting credibility on being director of public prosecutions, who promised to have knife Crime, who launched mission after mission and program after program, has presided over 18 months where teenagers continue dying at historic rates, where organized gangs storm schools, where machetes appear on Oxford Street during New Year celebrations, where 14-year-olds are executed on buses, where train passengers are stabbed during commutes. His government banned zombie knives in September 2024. Thousands were surrendered and the killings continued. Throughout 2025, his government threatened tech executives. New regulations were proposed and the killings continued. His government launched Young Futures partnerships. £100 million was pledged and the killings continued month after month. Because all of these are reactions. All of these are political responses designed to create headlines and shield ministers from criticism. None of them address the brutal reality that entire communities have been abandoned, that thousands of children see violence as their only option, that the social fabric holding Britain together is disintegrating. The question facing every Londoner as we enter 2026 is this: how many more teenagers must die before this government moves beyond promises? How many more families must bury their children before prevention becomes genuine priority instead of political slogan? How many more communities must descend into violence before adequate resources flow to youth services, mental health support, and intervention programs that actually work? Starmer stood in Parliament and declared knife crime a national crisis. He was right, but recognizing a crisis and solving it are two completely different things. And right now, in December 2025, as another year ends with blood on London streets, 18 months of Starr's government have produced nothing but failed promises and rising body counts. The blade mobs are winning. The government is failing, and Britain's youth are paying the price with their lives.